Peter Murrell's rearrest and charging the other day was, I suppose you could call it shocking. In fact, I think both the SNP and Humza Yousaf did use the word shocking, actually. But I'm not sure it was surprising. I'm not sure that for the independent observer who's been looking at what's happening and has seen the arrests that have happened before and the topics that are being discussed, was it surprising? I'm not really sure it was. So I suppose, I think in my head, which voters who had not already turned away from the SNP are going to turn away from the SNP because of what happened to Peter Murrell last week. And I think it's quite a small number.
First of all, since we last spoke, some real drama, actually, involving the Operation Branchform, the police investigation into the SNP's finances. The latest line on this, of course, is that Peter Murrell, who was the chief executive of the SNP and who is Nicola Sturgeon's husband, has been charged with embezzling funds. He served as the party's chief executive for 22 years before stepping down in 2023. He and Nicola Sturgeon married since 2010. So this, I suppose, Andy, feels like, the biggest development so far, clearly in Operation Branchform, after something of a long delay while the police carried out their... Delay is probably unfair, actually. It's probably pejorative. While the police carried out their investigations. And then in addition to this, Nicola Sturgeon's postponed her appearance at the Scottish Affairs Committee at Westminster next week. She was due to give evidence on the 29th, but the committee is working on a new date for that, citing witness availability. Now, I'm only saying the two things because it involves the same two people. That's the only reason I'm drawing those two stories together. Your reaction to Peter Murrell's charging, though, with embezzlement, and do keep us out of court. Obviously, there's only so much we can say on this. But yes, quite the moment in the police investigation.
Well, I'll keep myself out of court. You two, it's up to you. I think that politically, because that's really what our focus is on, obviously, are the political implications of it. It has been a pretty interesting few months in that people have been starting to wonder what's going on, because there's been a very long period of time since anything's really happened in Operation Branchform. And you can go onto Twitter and you can find an awful lot of experts who are very, very close to Operation Branchform and are predicting exactly what's going to happen, all of whom are totally wrong, because the reality is, quite rightly, that nobody really knows or knew what is going on. I suppose the thing that I find most interesting are the implications, or the potential implications on the SNP ahead of the election in particular. And, I mean, look, who knows until it happens? My gut feeling on this, which you actually see reflected in Tory party polling whenever there's a big scandal at Westminster with the Tories, is that their polling takes a big dip, but then it basically goes back up again and levels out to trend. And my gut feeling is that in terms of the impact on the SNP, I think most of this is baked in now. Peter Murrell's rearrest and charging the other day was, I suppose you could call it shocking. In fact, I think both the SNP and Humza Yousaf did use the word shocking, actually. But I'm not sure it was surprising. I'm not sure that for the independent observer who's been looking at what's happening and has seen the arrests that have happened before and the topics that are being discussed, was it surprising? I'm not really sure it was. So I suppose, I think in my head, which voters who had not already turned away from the SNP are going to turn away from the SNP because of what happened to Peter Murrell last week. And I think it's quite a small number.
I think what's interesting on that, Andy, is you mentioned the kind of conservative scandals, and there are some that stick. So, for example, focus groups and polling show that Partygate, for example, sticks in people's minds. And that is still cited today as a reason for people not wanting to support the Tories. So, Geoff, actually, let's bring you in on the kind of political point on all of this, because it has been a sorry saga, a sorry chapter for the SNP, and embezzlement charges brought against the former chief executive is something that potentially will stick in voters' minds, actually.
Yeah, it could. I mean, you say it's a sorry chapter. I think the question now is how many more chapters are there going to be in this particular story, and that will probably dictate how damaging or not it's going to be for the SNP's electoral chances. If I may just say, there's been a lot of rumours going on for some considerable time that, people were adamant that Peter Murrell was going to get charged, and then it went on, and there was no kind of announcement made. And yet when it happened, you are still shocked. And I say this as somebody that worked in the party. I know Peter. And I was really quite sad about the whole thing. And I know a number of former colleagues and current workers in the party and in government are extremely kind of saddened as well at this. And there is an element, of course, of how you motivate yourself as a party going forward with this as a backdrop. And in that sense, I think it's going to be quite difficult and challenging for the SNP going forward. But on the more positive side of things, we're starting to see lines drawn under this. And I think that's the big priority for anyone in the SNP. Look, let's just understand the scale of this, what's going to happen, so at least we can move on. I think it's the not knowing that's been more difficult in the last period.
Thank you so much for watching. Press subscribe and you'll get all the best videos offering insight on Scottish politics delivered straight to your feed. Press subscribe and stick around. And if you'd like to hear our conversations in full, open up your podcast app and search for Holyrood Sources.